I thought the college reunion would be a few hours of small talk, then everyone goes home. I was wrong. When my ex-wife stood in front of our old friends, smiled and told them I was a terrible husband and a terrible father, the whole room laughed while I stood there frozen. I chose silence, not because I accepted the blame, but because I didn't want to ruin the atmosphere. But right then, a woman stepped forward, linked her arm through mine, and said one word that changed everything. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before the reunion, a plain cream envelope with my name typed across the front. Marcus Hayes. I almost threw it away standing in my kitchen at 11:45 at night, the refrigerator door open, cold air washing over me while Sophie slept upstairs. College felt like another lifetime, one I didn't particularly want to revisit. The cream cardstock showed an embossed university seal and a list of attendees who'd already RSVP. My eyes caught one name, and my stomach dropped. Rebecca Chen Hayes, my ex-wife. The woman who'd walked out on our family 4 years ago when Sophie was 5. I closed the refrigerator and stared at that name. We hadn't spoken in almost 4 years except through lawyers and curt text messages about Sophie's medical records. The divorce had been quick and cold, paperwork signed in separate rooms, no fights over custody because Rebecca didn't want any. She'd moved to New York for a senior partner position at a corporate law firm, remarried 18 months ago to another lawyer, and hadn't visited Sophie in 9 months. Not even a birthday card last March. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize lit up the screen. Marcus, this is Jessica Chen, Chemistry Study Group Junior Year. I got your number from the alumni directory. We need to talk about the reunion. I texted back. Jessica? It's been forever. What's going on? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Rebecca will be there. She's been telling people things about your marriage, about you. I thought you should know before Saturday. My jaw clenched. What kind of things? That you were never home. That you prioritized work over family. That you were the reason she had to choose between career and marriage. Marcus, I know that's not true, but she's convincing. She'll have Kelly, Claire, and Amy with her. They believe her version. I sat down at the kitchen table, the invitation crumpling slightly in my grip. The old anger tried to surface, the urge to call Rebecca and confront her. But I remembered what my lawyer had said during the divorce. Don't engage. Anything you say will be used against you. Document everything. Say nothing. Thanks for the warning, I typed back. I'll think about whether to go. Don't let her win by scaring you off, Jessica replied. Some of us remember the truth. You were always the one picking Sophie up from daycare. You were always the one who left parties early because you had a daughter waiting. Don't hide. I set the phone down and looked at the framed photo on the counter. Sophie and me at her soccer game last weekend, her gap-toothed grin wide as she held up her participation medal. She'd asked me that morning if I ever did anything fun anymore. The words had stung because they were true. My life had become a careful routine designed to keep everything from falling apart. Wake at 5:45, make breakfast, pack Sophie's lunch with the sandwich cut into triangles the way she liked, drive her to school, work until 5 sharp, pick her up, homework, dinner, bedtime, repeat. Weekends were soccer practice and grocery shopping at the Whole Foods in Cambridge where they knew Sophie liked the free cookies at the bakery counter. I didn't mind the routine. After Rebecca left, structure felt like survival. But Sophie was right. I never did anything just for me anymore. Maybe the reunion would be good. Maybe facing Rebecca's lies in person would be better than letting them spread unchallenged. Or maybe I was fooling myself. 3 weeks ago felt like yesterday as I stood in my bathroom mirror on the morning of the reunion, adjusting a tie I hadn't worn in months. The navy suit still fit, barely, though the waistband felt tighter than I remembered. Sophie sat on my bed behind me, legs swinging, watching with the serious expression she got when she was thinking hard about something. "You look handsome, Dad. Like a prince." I turned from the mirror. "I think you're biased, kiddo." "No, really. You just look sad most of the time, so you seem older. But today you're smiling, so you look younger." The observation hit harder than it should have. 9 years old, and she could read me better than I could read myself. How many times had I thought I was hiding my exhaustion, my frustration, my loneliness, only to have Sophie see right through it. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm just busy taking care of you." "But who takes care of you?" The question hung in the air. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound pathetic, so I changed the subject. "Aunt Jenna will be here soon to pick you up. You excited about the sleepover with your cousin?" Sophie nodded, but her eyes stayed on me. "Dad, why are you nervous?" "What makes you think I'm nervous?" "You've tied that tie 3 times, and you keep checking your phone." I had checked my phone 17 times in the last hour, though I wasn't sure what I was hoping to see. Diana Calloway, my boss at Calloway Industries, had mentioned yesterday that she'd be at the Grand Meridian Hotel for a business dinner Saturday evening. The same hotel, the same night. She'd said it casually, barely looking up from her laptop. "If you need anything, I'll be around." At the time, I'd thought it was just a polite gesture, the kind of thing bosses said to seem approachable. But I'd worked for Diana for 4 years, and she'd never been the type for empty pleasantries. Everything she said had purpose, even if I didn't always understand what that purpose was. The doorbell rang. Jenna, my younger sister, stood on the porch with her usual expression of amused concern. She took one look at me and whistled. "Wow, you clean up nice when you try. Special occasion, or are you trying to impress someone?" "It's just a reunion. Old classmates. No big deal." Jenna stepped inside and lowered her voice. "Sophie told me Rebecca will be there. Are you sure about this? You don't have to prove anything to those people." "I'm not proving anything. I'm just showing up. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because the Marcus I know would rather avoid drama than walk straight into it." I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door. "Maybe I'm tired of avoiding things." Jenna studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but if she starts her games, you remember something. You're the one who stayed. You're the one who changed diapers at 2 a.m. and learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. You're the one Sophie calls when she's scared. Rebecca gave up that right. Don't let her rewrite history." Sophie came bounding down the stairs with her overnight bag, and I hugged her tight enough that she squirmed. "Be good for Aunt Jenna." "I'm always good." "I know. That's the scary part." I watched them drive away, then sat in my car for 5 full minutes before starting the engine. The drive to downtown Boston felt both too long and too short. Traffic on Storrow Drive was lighter than usual, the Charles River glittering in the late afternoon sun. I'd taken this route to work every day for 4 years, but today it felt different. Today I was driving toward something I couldn't control, and the lack of control made my hands grip the steering wheel tighter than necessary. My phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Diana. "Hayes, if reunion gets difficult, remember, opinions from people who don't raise your child, pay your salary, or love you aren't worth losing sleep over." I stared at the message. Diana never texted about personal matters. Every communication was email, professional, direct. And she'd never called me anything but Hayes in 4 years, never asked about my personal life beyond how it affected my work schedule. But she knew about Sophie's soccer games. She knew about the appendicitis scare last month. She knew things I'd never explicitly told her, which meant she'd been paying attention in ways I hadn't noticed. The light turned green and I pocketed my phone, but her words stayed with me. People who don't love you. Such a strange thing to say. Such a specific thing. The Grand Meridian Hotel rose 20 stories above Boylston Street. Its 1920s facade preserved and polished, brass fixtures gleaming in the early evening light. I gave my keys to the valet and walked through the marble lobby, following signs to the governor's ballroom. Voices and music drifted from the open doors. I was early, 7:15. The invitation said 7:30, but I'd wanted time to orient myself, to find the exits, to plan escape routes if necessary. The ballroom was already half full. 60 people maybe, clustered in groups, wine glasses in hand, laughter bouncing off the high ceilings. I recognized faces but couldn't match them to names. 15 years changed people more than I'd expected. The star quarterback had gone bald. The girl who'd sat behind me in economics now had twin toddlers, according to her conversation. Everyone seemed successful, polished, comfortable in their skin in ways I'd never managed. I grabbed a glass of white wine from the bar and positioned myself near the back wall where I could see the entrance. Tom Mitchell spotted me first. We'd been roommates freshman year before he'd joined a fraternity and I'd moved off campus. He approached with the careful enthusiasm of someone who couldn't quite remember if we'd liked each other. "Marcus Hayes! Man, it's been forever. You look good." "Thanks, you too." "So what are you up to these days? Still with, what was her name?" "Rebecca. We divorced 4 years ago." Tom's face did that thing people's faces did when confronted with divorce. Sympathy mixed with relief that it wasn't them, mixed with curiosity about the details. "Oh man, that's rough. Sorry to hear it. You seeing anyone new?" "No. I have a daughter, Sophie. She's 9. Takes up most of my time." Right. Kids are tough. My wife and I decided not to have any. Too much work, you know? Plus, with my schedule, I'd never be around."
Sounds like you barely have time for a life, huh? The implication landed like a slap. As if raising my daughter wasn't life. As if every morning making her pancakes, every evening helping with math homework, every weekend cheering at soccer games somehow didn't count as living. I forced a smile. "I have a life, just different from yours." Tom nodded, already looking past me for someone more interesting to talk to. Cool. Well, good seeing you, man. We should grab a beer sometime." We both knew we wouldn't. I moved away before the conversation could get more uncomfortable, finding refuge near a table of appetizers I had no intention of eating. The minutes crawled. 7:25, 7:30, 7:35. Then the energy in the room shifted. Rebecca walked through the door at 7:40, and it was like a spotlight had been turned on. She wore a red dress. Carolina Herrera, if I remembered her tastes correctly. Her dark hair swept up in a style that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Behind her came Kelly, Claire, and Amy. 3 women I vaguely remembered from study groups and dorm parties. They moved like a unit, confident and loud, immediately becoming the center of attention. I watched Rebecca scan the room. Her eyes passed over me once, kept going, then snapped back. Recognition flashed across her face, followed by something else. Not surprise. Calculation. Like she'd known I'd be here and had planned for it. She said something to her friends and they all looked at me. Kelly whispered something that made Claire laugh. Amy at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Then Rebecca started walking toward me, her entourage following like ducks in formation. My heart rate kicked up. Every instinct screamed to leave, to walk out right now, to avoid whatever was about to happen. But Jenna's words echoed. "You're the one who stayed." So I stayed. Rebecca stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same scent she'd worn when we were married. Chanel #5. She smiled, and it was the smile I'd seen her use on opposing counsel. Sweet on the surface, with teeth underneath. Marcus, I didn't think you'd actually come. Why wouldn't I? Oh, you know. You were always so busy with work and everything. Hard to imagine you taking time for something social. The lie was so smooth I almost admired the technique. Kelly and Claire moved closer, forming a semicircle that felt like a trap. Jessica was across the room talking to someone else, too far to help even if she wanted to. I made time. Sophie wanted me to come. Rebecca's smile tightened at Sophie's name. How is she? Still living in that same apartment in Somerville? We like the neighborhood. Good schools. Sophie has friends there. Of course. You always did prefer comfortable over ambitious. The first cut. Subtle enough that anyone overhearing might think it was a compliment, but I heard what she meant. Mediocre. Small. Settling. Kelly laughed, a sound like breaking glass. What do you do now, Marcus? Still in, what was it, administrative work? I'm a senior executive assistant at Callaway Industries. Rebecca turned to her friends. See? Marcus has always been good at supporting roles. He prefers to stay in the background. Not everyone has the drive to lead. Claire sipped her wine and studied me like I was an exhibit. Amy looked at her shoes. The circle was tightening, and I could feel other people starting to pay attention. This was theater. Rebecca was performing, and I was the prop. How's work going for you, Rebecca? Wonderful. I just made senior partner. Youngest woman in the firm's history. It's demanding, of course, but I've always believed in putting everything into what matters. What matters? Not who. The implication was clear. Her career mattered. Her ambitions mattered. Sophie and I had not. That's great. Congratulations. Thank you. It's funny looking back at our marriage. I wanted so badly to make it work, but some people just aren't capable of being equal partners. The room was quieter now. 15 or 20 people had stopped their conversations to watch. Rebecca's voice carried perfectly, pitched to sound vulnerable while ensuring everyone could hear. I begged you to be more present, to prioritize us. But you were always working late, always choosing the office over family. In the end, I had to choose myself. My throat went dry. Every word was a lie. I'd been the one leaving work at 5 sharp every day. I'd been the one who turned down a promotion because it required travel. I'd been the one getting up for 2 a.m. feedings while Rebecca slept through them with earplugs in. But saying any of that would make me look defensive. It would turn into he said, she said, and Rebecca had the audience on her side. That's not exactly what happened. Isn't it? Then why do I have therapy records documenting everything? Why did our therapist tell me I needed to set boundaries with someone who is emotionally unavailable? The therapist you chose. The therapist you paid. A few people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. I'd landed a hit, however small. But Rebecca recovered faster than I expected. Of course I paid. You were always too busy to deal with appointments, too busy to deal with our marriage, too busy to deal with being a father. The word father echoed. I saw 3 phones come out, cameras pointing our direction. Someone was recording this, maybe multiple someones. The realization froze me. Anything I said now would be captured, shared, turned into content. Rebecca knew it. The slight upturn of her lips told me she'd planned this. I need to use the restroom. I turned to walk away, but Rebecca's voice followed me. Running away. Just like always. My hands curled into fists, but I kept walking. 2 steps. 3. Then I felt it. A presence beside me, warm and close. A hand, gentle but firm, rested on my forearm. I turned, confused, and saw her. Diana Calloway stood there in a black Calvin Klein dress, simple but clearly expensive, her dark hair down instead of in the usual tight bun she wore to the office. I'd never seen her hair down. I'd never seen her in anything but business suits. She looked different, softer, but her eyes held that same sharp intelligence I'd seen across conference tables for 4 years. She didn't look at me first. She looked at Rebecca, then at the crowd, then at the 3 phones recording. Her expression remained perfectly calm, like she'd just walked into an ordinary conversation and not a public execution. Then she turned to me, and her eyes asked a question I barely understood. Trust me? I didn't know what was happening, but I was drowning, and she was offering a hand. So I nodded. Just slightly, just enough. Diana's hand moved from my forearm to link through my arm, a gesture intimate and possessive at once. She turned back to face Rebecca and the watching crowd. When she spoke, her voice carried the same boardroom authority I'd heard her use to shut down aggressive investors. "Sorry I'm late, honey. Traffic on Storrow Drive was terrible." The room went silent, completely silent. The kind of silence that happens when reality shifts and no one knows how to react. Rebecca's face went through a series of micro-expressions too fast to catalog. Confusion, shock, recalculation. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Kelly was the first to recover. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Diana extended her free hand in a gesture so professional it almost mocked the personal nature of her other hand linked through my arm. "Diana Calloway, Marcus's employer and friend." The pause before "friend" was deliberate. Ambiguous enough to mean anything, specific enough to mean something. Rebecca found her voice. It came out higher than normal. "Calloway? As in Calloway Industries?" "The same." Tom Mitchell, who'd been standing nearby, pulled out his phone. I watched him Google something, his eyes going wide. "Holy shit," he whispered, not quietly enough. "That's Diana Calloway, the Billionaire CEO." The atmosphere shifted like air pressure before a storm. People who'd been watching the drama with detached amusement suddenly looked engaged, calculating. Rebecca's friends glanced at each other, their unified front cracking. Rebecca recovered with impressive speed. Her smile returned, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, this is unexpected. Marcus, you brought your boss to a college reunion?" Diana's grip on my arm tightened fractionally. Not enough for anyone else to notice, just enough for me to feel it. "He didn't bring me. I had business here tonight. When I saw what was happening, I felt compelled to intervene." "Intervene in what, exactly? We were just having a conversation about old times." "Were you?" Because it sounded more like character assassination. The words landed like stones in still water. Claire took a step back. Amy looked like she wanted to disappear. Kelly stood her ground, but her expression had lost its earlier smugness. Rebecca laughed. It sounded brittle. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Diana, was it? You clearly don't know Marcus as well as you think. There's a difference between someone's work persona and who they really are." "You're absolutely right. There is a difference. That's why I pay attention to both." "Meaning what?" Diana let go of my arm but didn't step away. Instead, she positioned herself slightly in front of me, a human shield I hadn't asked for but desperately needed. "Meaning I've worked with Marcus for 4 years. I know he arrives at 6 a.m. every morning. I know he's never missed a deadline. I know he turned down a senior VP position with triple his current salary because it required relocating to Seattle and disrupting Sophie's school and soccer team." The information hit Rebecca like a physical blow. Her face paled. She hadn't known about the VP offer. Why would she? We hadn't spoken in months. "That's very sweet," Rebecca said. "But work achievements don't erase personal failures." "What personal failures are we discussing? Be specific." "He was never present emotionally. He didn't support my career. He made me choose between my ambitions and our marriage." "Did he make you choose? Or did you choose and need someone to blame?" The question cut through Rebecca's narrative like a scalpel. She opened her mouth to respond, but Diana kept talking. "I lost my husband 6 years ago. Cancer. 18 months from diagnosis to death at Mass General Hospital."
You know what I learned watching a good man die?
The room had gone silent again, but this time the silence felt different, heavier. Diana's voice carried pain she usually kept locked away. I'd never heard her mention her husband. I'd known she was widowed because HR had mentioned it once, but she never talked about it, never showed vulnerability. Until now. Good men are rare. Men who show up every day. Men who sacrifice their own advancement for their children's stability. Men who choose responsibility over recognition. Women who walk away from men like that usually realize too late what they had. Diana's eyes found Rebecca's and held them. "You gave up custody of Sophie without a fight. Suffolk County Family Court, public record. Marcus fought for his daughter. You didn't even show up to the final hearing." Rebecca's face went from pale to red. "You don't understand the situation. You don't know what it was like. You're right. I don't understand abandoning your child."
But I understand, Marcus. Because I employ 3,000 people across 5 states. I've seen every type of employee. The ones who show up, the ones who make excuses, the ones who do the work, and the ones who just talk about it. Marcus is the kind who does the work, without fanfare, without complaint, without needing constant validation. Someone in the crowd started clapping. Just one person, then another. Jessica, I realized. And Tom, surprisingly. Within seconds, a dozen people were applauding. Not for me, for Diana, for saying what I couldn't say. Rebecca looked around at her crumbling support. Kelly and Claire had moved away, creating distance. Amy had disappeared entirely. The phones that had been recording were now pointed at Rebecca, capturing her humiliation instead of mine. Diana turned to me. "Are you ready to go?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Then let's go." She linked her arm through mine again, and we walked toward the exit. Behind us, I heard Rebecca's voice, desperate now.
"This isn't over. You can't just—"
But we were already gone. The hotel hallway was quiet after the chaos of the ballroom. Diana walked beside me, her heels clicking against marble tile in a rhythm that somehow steadied my racing thoughts. We passed a mirror, and I caught our reflection. We looked like a couple leaving a date. The image felt surreal. She stopped near the elevators, far enough from the ballroom that the noise had faded to a murmur. Her hand slipped from my arm, and immediately I felt colder. She turned to face me, and the composed mask she'd worn inside cracked just slightly. Exhaustion showed around her eyes. "Why did you do that?" The words came out rougher than I intended. "Because I don't like bullies." "You didn't have to. People will think we're—" "Let them think what they want. We know the truth." I ran a hand through my hair, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. "You called me honey." You held my arm like we were together. Diana's expression didn't change. I said what needed to be said to stop what was happening. The delivery method was negotiable. That's not an answer.
She looked away, toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boylston Street. Saturday night traffic crawled below us, headlights painting streaks across the glass. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter.
You've worked for me for 4 years, Marcus. In that time, I've watched you be invisible to people who should have noticed. HR doesn't see you beyond your job title. Your colleagues think you're just competent and quiet. And your ex-wife stands in a room full of your peers and rewrites history to make you the villain. She turned back to me. Someone needed to tell the truth. You barely know me. I know you arrive at work before anyone else. I know you've never asked for special treatment despite being a single parent.
I know you negotiated flexible hours before accepting the job. Because Sophie's schedule mattered more than your ego. I know you stayed late exactly 3 times in 4 years, and all 3 were when Sophie was at sleepovers. The detail in her observations stunned me into silence. I'd thought Diana Calloway saw me the way she saw everyone who worked for her. A function, a role to fill, reliable but replaceable. How do you know all that? Because I pay attention to the people who make my company run, the ones who don't demand recognition but earn it anyway. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. This is going to cause problems at work. Probably. HR will have questions about workplace relationships and professional boundaries. Yes. The video will go viral. People will assume things about us. Diana pulled out her own phone and showed me the screen. TikTok. A video titled, "Billionaire CEO Defends Single Dad from Toxic Ex-Wife," already had 50,000 views. The top comment had 2,300 likes. This is the boss we all need. My stomach dropped. Oh, God. It's already happening. But Marcus, look at the comments. They're defending you. They're calling out Rebecca. The narrative isn't the one she tried to create. This could hurt your reputation. Investors will think you're getting involved in employee drama. Diana pocketed her phone. Stock price went up 2% after the first video posted. Investors apparently like humanizing CEO moments, and my reputation was built on making difficult decisions. This isn't one. She started walking toward the exit and I followed, because I didn't know what else to do. We emerged into the cool October night. Boston's autumn air bit through my suit jacket. Diana glanced at the valet stand, then at me. Where are you parked? 2 blocks down. You? I took a car service, drivers waiting around the corner. An awkward pause stretched between us. Diana shifted her weight, a small gesture I'd never seen her make at the office. She was nervous. Diana Calloway, who negotiated billion-dollar contracts without flinching, was nervous talking to me outside of work. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. For what you did in there. You didn't have to. No, but I wanted to. She met my eyes. Monday we'll deal with HR. For tonight, go home to Sophie. That's what matters. She turned to leave, but I spoke before thinking. Diana, wait. She stopped. That text you sent earlier, about people who don't love me. Why did you phrase it that way? The question hung between us like smoke. Diana's expression shifted into something I couldn't read. Vulnerability, maybe, or fear of showing it. Because it's true. The only opinions that matter are from people invested in your life. Everyone else is noise. She paused. Good night, Marcus. She walked away before I could respond. I watched her turn the corner, then stood alone on the sidewalk trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed again. Then again. And again, a cascade of notifications. I pulled it out. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Facebook friend requests from people I hadn't talked to in 15 years. Twitter mentions, Instagram tags. The video had spread beyond TikTok. Someone had posted it to YouTube, Reddit, LinkedIn somehow. A text from Jenna.
I saw the video. Call me now. One from Tom Mitchell. Dude, are you actually dating Diana Calloway? Jessica. That was incredible. Rebecca left right after you did. She looked ready to murder someone. Then one from a number I recognized despite having deleted it from my contacts years ago. Rebecca. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding and started walking to my car. The 2 blocks felt like 2 miles. My mind kept replaying the ballroom scene, Diana's hand on my arm, her voice when she'd defended me.
The way she'd positioned herself between me and Rebecca like a human shield.
4 years. 4 years of professional distance. 4 years of Hayes instead of Marcus. 4 years of believing I was just another employee to her. And tonight she'd blown that assumption apart. My car was where I'd left it, a 7-year-old Honda Civic that needed new tires and had a Sophie-inflicted dent on the passenger door from when she'd opened it into a pole at the grocery store. I sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. The video was still playing on my phone. I watched it once. Diana saying, "Honey," with such casual certainty that even I almost believed we were together. The way Rebecca's face had changed when she realized who Diana was. The applause that had started small and grown. The humiliation in Rebecca's eyes when Diana mentioned the custody hearing. Part of me felt vindicated. Finally, someone had called Rebecca out. Finally, people had heard the truth.
But another part felt something darker. Satisfaction at Rebecca's pain. Pleasure at watching her public embarrassment. Was that who I wanted to be? I started the car and drove toward Jamaica Plain where Jenna lived. The route took me past Boston Common, the trees already dropping leaves that swirled in my headlights. Saturday night crowds filled the sidewalks outside bars and restaurants. Normal people having normal nights, unaware that my entire life had just been uploaded to the internet. Jenna's porch light was on when I pulled into her driveway at 9:47. She opened the door before I could knock, phone in hand, eyes wide. You didn't call me back. I'm here now. She pulled me inside and shut the door. Marcus, do you understand what's happening? That video has over 200,000 views. The Boston Globe picked it up. Channel 5 is calling it a viral moment. And people are saying you're dating Diana Calloway. We're not dating. Then what was that?
I don't know. Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, hair wet from a shower. Dad, you're on TV. What? Jenna's husband David called from the living room. Local news is running the story. They're framing it as feel-good content about supportive workplaces. I walked into the living room. The TV showed a freeze frame of Diana and me, her arm linked through mine, both of us facing the camera. The news anchor was talking about corporate culture and workplace relationships and modern romance, buzzwords that meant nothing and everything at once. Sophie climbed onto the couch next to me. Is that lady your girlfriend? No, sweetheart. She's my boss. But she said nice things about you. Aunt Jenna says people only say nice things like that when they love you. Jenna shot me an apologetic look. She asked questions. I tried to keep it simple. I pulled Sophie close. The lady's name is Diana.
She's someone I work with who saw me in a difficult situation and decided to help. That's what good people do. Is she pretty? The question caught me off guard. I thought about Diana in that black dress, hair down, eyes fierce as she'd confronted Rebecca. Yes, she's pretty. Then you should send her flowers. Mrs. Patterson says flowers are polite when someone does something nice. Mrs. Patterson is your second-grade teacher. I don't think workplace etiquette was part of her curriculum. Sophie shrugged with the confidence of someone who knew she was right, regardless of adult logic. You should still send flowers. My phone buzzed. An email notification at 10:15 on a Saturday night. From Diana. Subject: Monday. I opened it. Hayes, don't overthink tonight. Video will die down or won't. Either way, your job is secure. Your reputation, the one that matters, is intact. Monday will address HR questions professionally. For now, rest. You earned it. One more thing. I meant what I said in there. Every word. People who show up matter. You show up. DCPS. Tell Sophie I hope her soccer game went well last week. I read it 3 times. Diana knew about Sophie's soccer game. She remembered. A CEO running a multi-billion-dollar company with 3,000 employees across 5 states had noticed and remembered my daughter's Saturday morning soccer schedule. Dad, you okay? I looked at Sophie's concerned face. Yeah, kiddo. I'm good. Just tired. Can we go home now? Sure. Go get your stuff. She ran upstairs. Jenna sat down across from me, her expression serious. Mark, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you have feelings for Diana Calloway? I barely know her outside of work. That's not what I asked. I thought about Diana's text from earlier that day, the one about people who love you. I thought about how she'd researched Rebecca, changed her dinner reservation to overlook the ballroom, positioned herself to intervene if necessary. None of that was impulsive. All of it was planned. I don't know what I feel. Tonight was intense and confusing, and I'm still processing. The way she looked at you in that video, the way she defended you. Marcus, that wasn't professional concern. That was personal. Maybe. Or maybe she just hates seeing people get bullied. She lost her husband. She knows what it's like to lose someone who mattered. Jenna leaned forward. Exactly. She lost someone. And she's been alone for 6 years, according to office gossip you've mentioned. Then she sees you, a good man being torn down by his ex-wife, and she can't stand by and watch. You don't think that means something? Sophie came back downstairs with her backpack. I stood, grateful for the interruption. I think it means I have a boss who cares about her employees, nothing more. But driving home, Sophie asleep in the back seat, I couldn't stop thinking about Jenna's question. Did I have feelings for Diana? I'd never let myself consider it. She was my boss. The power dynamic alone made anything inappropriate. But feelings didn't care about appropriate. Feelings happened in the space between professional distance and personal connection. And tonight, that space had collapsed entirely. Home was a 2-bedroom apartment in Jamaica Plain that I'd rented after the divorce because it was near Sophie's school and had a park 2 blocks away. The building was old enough to have character, new enough to have working heat. Sophie's bedroom had walls covered in soccer posters and crayon drawings. My bedroom had a bed, a dresser, and a framed photo of Sophie at age 3, back when Rebecca still lived with us and I'd been naive enough to think we'd make it work. I tucked Sophie into bed at 11:30. She was already half asleep, but mumbled something about the pretty lady. I kissed her forehead and retreated to my own room, too wired to sleep despite the exhaustion pulling at my bones. The video had crossed 1 million views. Comments flooded in faster than I could read them. Most supported me. Some called it staged. A few blamed me for provoking Rebecca. Internet strangers debating my life like it was entertainment made my skin crawl. Then I saw a comment that stopped me cold. I went to college with both of them. Marcus was always the one picking up their kid from daycare. He was always the one leaving parties early because he had a daughter waiting. Rebecca was the one sleeping through the night while he handled feedings. This man got screwed by his ex, and people need to know it. The comment had 18,000 likes. Replies stacked underneath, people sharing their own divorce stories, their own custody battles, their own experiences with exes who rewrote history. I was no longer just Marcus Hayes. I'd become a symbol of something larger. Single fathers, unfairly maligned men, people who stayed when others left. The weight of it pressed down until I had to set the phone aside and stare at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd have to figure out what this meant. Tonight, I just needed to breathe. Sleep came in fragments. I woke at 2 a.m. to check my phone. 3 a.m. 4:30. By 5:45, I gave up and made coffee, starting my Sunday the way I always did, routine providing comfort when everything else felt unstable. Sophie woke at 8 and found me making pancakes. She climbed onto a kitchen stool and watched me flip them with more concentration than the task required. Jenny's mom saw the video. I nearly dropped the spatula. What did she say? That you're famous, and that the pretty lady who defended you must really like you. Sophie, do you like her? The question was simple. The answer wasn't. I respect her. She's a good boss, and she did something kind last night. That's not what I asked. I plated the pancakes and sat across from her. When you're older, you'll understand that adults have complicated relationships. Work relationships especially. Diana and I are colleagues. We're not friends exactly, but we're not strangers either. We're something in between. But you smiled when you talked about her just now. Did I? Yeah. A different smile than your dad's smile. A happy smile. I didn't know what to do with that observation, so I changed the subject. What do you want to do today? Park? Movies? Can we stay home? I want to draw. Relief washed through me. A quiet day at home sounded perfect. No crowds, no questions, no one recognizing me from viral videos. Just my daughter and coloring books and the normalcy I desperately needed. We spent the morning on the living room floor, Sophie drawing elaborate scenes of soccer games while I pretended to read a book, but mostly watched my phone light up with notifications I kept ignoring. By noon, the video had hit 2 million views. News outlets were calling it a cultural moment. Think pieces appeared about toxic exes, workplace romance, and billionaire saviors. My phone rang at 2:17. Rebecca's number. I declined the call. She called again. Declined again. Then a text came through. Please, I need to talk to you. This is destroying my career. Andrew is furious. My firm is asking questions. I'm begging you. I stared at the message. Part of me, the part that had loved her once, felt sympathy. Her marriage was failing. Her reputation was damaged. She was scared. But the larger part, the part that had spent 4 years picking up the pieces after she'd left, felt nothing. I typed back. You made your choices. I'm not going to lie for you. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then her response came through. I know I fucked up. I know I was terrible. But this video is being shown to my colleagues. My clients are seeing it. Andrew's parents are seeing it. His firm is saying it's bad for their image being associated with me. I'm losing everything. You lost Sophie. Everything else is just consequences. The dots appeared one more time, then stopped. No response came. I set the phone down and focused on Sophie, who was explaining her drawing of a soccer field where all the players were cats. Her imagination knew no bounds, and her belief that I'd find this interesting was absolute. Evening came. Sophie wanted mac and cheese for dinner, the kind from the blue box that Rebecca used to criticize as nutritionally void. I made it without guilt, adding frozen peas to pretended vegetables.
We ate on the couch watching a nature documentary about penguins. At 9:30, I put Sophie to bed.
She asked if the pretty lady would visit sometime. I told her maybe. She asked if I was going to send flowers. I told her I'd think about it. She asked if I was happy. The question paralyzed me. Why would you ask that? Because you seem different. Less tired. Like you're not carrying something heavy anymore. I kissed her goodnight without answering because I didn't have words for what I was feeling. Relief, maybe. Vindication. Fear about what came next. And underneath it all, something I didn't want to name that had to do with Diana Calloway and the way she'd looked at me when she'd asked if I was ready to leave. My bedroom felt too quiet. I sat on the bed with my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding. I Googled Diana Calloway. Forbes articles about her business acumen. Boston Magazine profile from 3 years ago focusing on her as one of the city's most successful entrepreneurs. A Wikipedia page detailing her education at MIT, her marriage to Richard Calloway, who'd founded the company, his death from pancreatic cancer at age 41. Photos of her at charity galas, always composed, always professional, always alone. One article from 6 years ago, right after Richard's death, quoted her at his memorial service. Richard believed in showing up, not for glory or recognition, but because the work mattered and the people mattered. I'll honor his memory by doing the same. Showing up. The same phrase she'd used about me. Was that how she saw me? A reflection of her late husband? Or was I reading meaning into coincidence? I closed the laptop and tried to sleep. Failed. Tried again. Failed harder. At 11:45, I grabbed my phone and opened a new email. To Diana Calloway. Subject: Thank you. Body. I started typing, deleted it, started again. The cursor blinked at me accusingly. Ms. Calloway, I don't know the right way to thank you for what you did Saturday night. Thank you feels too small for something that big. You didn't have to defend me, but you did. And not just defend, you said things I needed to hear from someone I respect. The video is viral. Monday will probably be complicated. But tonight, Sophie asked about you. The pretty lady on the video, she called you. She wants me to invite you to dinner, not as a professional obligation, but as thanks from someone who did something remarkable. If you're too busy, I understand. But if you'd like homemade lasagna and conversation with a 9-year-old who asks 1,000 questions, we'd be honored to have you. Sophie says I should send flowers, but I think you're the kind of person who prefers honesty to flowers. So honestly, thank you for seeing me for 4 years. Marcus. I read it 5 times before hitting send at 11:53. Then I immediately regretted it. Too personal, too forward. She'd think I was crossing boundaries, or worse, assuming the performance from Saturday night meant something it didn't.
My phone buzzed at 12:07. New email. From Diana Calloway. Subject: R.E. Thank you. Body: Marcus, not Hayes, noted. Homemade lasagna sounds perfect. Friday night, 7 p.m. I'll bring dessert and patience for 1,000 questions. One condition: don't call me Ms. Calloway outside the office anymore. Diana works fine. See you Monday. We'll handle HR together. Diana. P.S. Sophie is right about flowers, but I prefer honesty. Smart kid. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. She'd said yes. She'd agreed to dinner at my apartment with my daughter, and she'd signed it Diana, not D.C. or Ms. Calloway. Just Diana. Sleep came easier after that. Not good sleep, but enough. I woke Monday morning at 5:30 with the familiar routine pulling me forward. Coffee, shower, wake Sophie, breakfast.
The video had crossed 5 million views overnight, but I stopped checking. Let it spread. Let people talk. I had work to do. The office felt different when I arrived at 7:45. People looked at me differently. Linda from accounting gave me a thumbs up. Steve from IT asked if Diana was really my girlfriend. The receptionist, normally barely aware of my existence, smiled and said she'd seen the video and thought it was romantic. I made it to my desk without incident and found my computer already logged in. Someone from IT must have accessed it remotely. That, or I'd forgotten to shut down Friday afternoon in my rush to leave for the reunion. Either way, my email inbox had 217 new messages. Most were internal company communications about the weekend that had nothing to do with me. 7 were from journalists requesting interviews. 3 were from HR asking me to come to a meeting at 8:30 sharp. Diana's office door was closed. Her calendar showed she had meetings blocked all morning, which meant she was deliberately avoiding me or genuinely busy. Probably both. At 8:25, I walked to the HR conference room on the 14th floor. Patricia Chen, head of HR, sat at the conference table with Robert Kim from legal. Both had the serious expressions of people about to deliver bad news they'd rehearsed. Diana walked in at 8:29. She wore a charcoal gray suit, hair back in its usual bun, every inch the CEO I'd known for 4 years. She sat across from me without acknowledgement, pulled out her tablet, and opened her calendar like this was any other meeting. Patricia cleared her throat. "Thank you both for coming. I'm sure you're aware of the video circulating from Saturday night. It's reached over 6 million views as of this morning. Media outlets are calling for statements. Shareholders have questions. We need to address the situation." Diana's fingers stilled on her tablet. And I've sent a statement. I witnessed workplace harassment spill over into a personal event. I intervened as a concerned observer. Personal relationship status is irrelevant to my ability to run this company. Should be sufficient. Robert leaned forward. With respect, Ms. Calloway, company policy regarding workplace relationships is clear. If there's any romantic involvement between you and Mr. Hayes, it creates a conflict of interest that needs to be managed. There's no romantic involvement. Marcus and I are colleagues. The video suggests otherwise. Diana's expression didn't change, but her voice dropped to the tone she used when someone was wasting her time. The video shows me using strategic ambiguity to stop a public humiliation. I never confirmed anything romantic. I simply let people assume what they wanted to assume. That was intentional. Patricia pulled out a printed copy of the company handbook and flipped to a marked page.
Section 12, subsection 4 states that any personal relationship between a supervisor and direct report must be disclosed to HR within 48 hours. The appearance of such a relationship, even if unconfirmed, requires action. Then we'll take action. Diana closed her tablet. Effective immediately, Marcus transfers to Special Projects Division reporting directly to the board, not to me. Same salary, same benefits, removes any supervisory conflict. I jerked in my seat. What? It's the cleanest solution. You wanted to avoid complications at work. This avoids them. Robert made a note. That would address the policy concern, yes. But Ms. Calloway, are you certain there's nothing between you and Mr. Hayes that would constitute a relationship? Diana looked at him without blinking. I'm certain that question crosses the line into personal territory that's none of your business. My professional decisions stand on their own merit. Marcus's transfer is effective today. Are we done? Patricia glanced at Robert, who shrugged. I'll draft the transfer paperwork. But Miss Calloway,
For what it's worth, the optics of this situation. The optics are that I defended an employee from bullying, and people created a narrative to fit their entertainment needs. I won't apologize for doing the right thing, neither will Marcus. If shareholders have issues, they can take it up with me directly. She stood. Good talk. Diana walked out. I sat frozen until Patricia coughed gently. Mr. Hayes, you're free to go. Expect transfer documents by end of day. I caught up with Diana in the hallway near the elevators. You just gave up supervising me. I transferred you. There's a difference. Why? She pressed the elevator call button and didn't look at me. Because if anything develops beyond professional boundaries, I don't want company policy standing in the way. The elevator arrived. We stepped inside. Diana pressed 30 for the executive floor, 28 for mine. The doors closed, and for 15 seconds we were alone in a small metal box rising through the building. Develops into what? My voice came out quieter than intended. She turned to face me. Like dinner Friday, with Sophie. As friends. The elevator dinged, 28th floor. The doors opened. Diana's expression softened in a way I'd never seen at work. Let's start there. See where it goes. I stepped out and the doors began to close. Diana's hand shot out to stop them. Marcus, I haven't let anyone close since Richard died. Work was safer. Control was safer. But watching you with Sophie, the way you show up every single day without complaint or need for recognition, it reminds me that life isn't just about being safe. She pulled her hand back. You terrify me. In a good way. The doors closed before I could respond. I stood in the hallway while people walked past to their Monday morning routines. My phone buzzed. Diana had texted from the elevator. New office is floor 30, corner suite with harbor view. Don't get too comfortable. Board meetings are brutal. I texted back. Bigger desk, same Dunkin' coffee. Missed the old view. 3 dots appeared. The harbor view? Something like that. I didn't mention that the old view had included Diana walking past my desk every morning at 7:52, her heels announcing her arrival before she came into sight. I didn't mention that I'd started arriving early, partly to make sure I didn't miss that moment. Her response came after a pause that felt too long. Friday, 7 p.m. I'll bring dessert. The week crawled. Tuesday, I moved into my new office on the 30th floor. Linda helped me carry boxes, asking questions about Diana I deflected with practiced vagueness. The office was bigger, the view better, the isolation complete. I missed seeing colleagues walk by. I missed the ambient noise of phones ringing and conversations happening just out of earshot. Wednesday, Diana texted at 3 p.m. How's the new space treating you? Quieter than expected. Turns out I liked the chaos. Board meetings start next week. You'll get plenty of chaos. Looking forward to it. A pause, then. About Friday. I'm nervous. The admission surprised me. You? Nervous? I haven't had dinner with a 9-year-old since my niece was small. What if Sophie doesn't like me? She already does. She's watched the video 20 times. You're basically her hero. What should I bring? Flowers seemed wrong for a child. Just yourself, that's enough. Another pause. Longer. Is it enough? The question carried weight I didn't know how to address over text. For Sophie, yes. For me, more than. She didn't respond for 10 minutes. When she did, it was simple. Good. See you Friday. Thursday, Rebecca called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail again. Then she texted. My lawyer says I should sue Diana Calloway for defamation. I wanted you to know I'm not going to. I'm trying to do one thing right. I typed back. Appreciate it. About Sophie. You wanted to see her. If she agrees, we can arrange supervised visits. The dots appeared and disappeared for 2 full minutes. Supervised. I deserve that. Thank you. Marcus, is Diana your girlfriend? No. But you want her to be? The question sat on my screen unanswered. Did I? Want felt too simple for the complexity of what I was feeling. Diana had defended me. She'd researched my ex-wife and positioned herself to intervene. She'd changed her entire evening plans to be there when I needed someone. Those weren't actions of casual interest. I'm still figuring that out. I sent it before I could overthink. Rebecca's response came immediately. She looked at you like you mattered. Hold on to that. I threw it away and I'm paying for it now. Don't make my mistakes. Friday arrived with October rain that turned Boston streets into rivers of fallen leaves. I left work at 4 sharp, stopped at Star Market for ingredients, and made lasagna while she hopped down from the counter and hugged me around the waist. I think you should try anyway. You're always sad. Good things? The best things. He says you're smarter than him. Sophie giggled and looked at me. He said that? Don't believe everything she tells you. But I was smiling, and Diana was smiling, and Sophie noticed both. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Sophie dominated the conversation, asking Diana about running a company and what it was like to be rich and did she have a private jet. Diana answered each question with genuine thought, never condescending, treating Sophie like an adult who deserved real answers. I don't have a private jet. They're expensive and bad for the environment. I fly commercial first class when I need to travel. Do you have a big house? I have a brownstone in Beacon Hill, 3 bedrooms, which feels too big for one person most days. You should get a dog. Diana laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. Maybe I should. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Sophie showed Diana her drawings while I cleaned up, listening to their conversation drift from the other room. Diana asked questions that showed she was actually paying attention. Sophie responded with the kind of openness she usually reserved for me and Jenna. By 9, Sophie was fighting sleep on the couch, wedged between us like a tiny chaperone. I carried her to bed while Diana waited in the living room, studying the framed photos on my bookshelf. When I came back, she was holding the one of Sophie at age 3, back when Rebecca still lived here. She looks like you. Everyone says that. It's true. Same eyes, same smile. She set the photo down. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. When did you know your marriage was over? The question caught me off guard. I sat on the couch and Diana joined me, leaving careful distance between us that somehow felt more intimate than touching. There wasn't one moment. It was gradual. Rebecca started working later hours. Coming home, and you apologized for the noise. Like you were sorry for being human, for having a life outside the office. She turned to face me, and I saw vulnerability I'd never expected. That's when I really saw you. Not Hayes, the assistant. Marcus, the father. The man who refused to choose between work and his daughter because he refused to fail at either. Richard was like that. He built Calloway Industries but never missed his niece's school plays. Never made me feel like I had to compete with his ambition. Her voice broke slightly. When he got sick, he made me promise not to become a work robot.
to find someone who understood balance. I broke that promise for 6 years. Then one day you came to work with Sophie's drawing on your desk folder. Stick figures labeled me and Daddy. I thought that's what matters, not quarterly earnings or market share. That. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was your boss. The power dynamic made anything inappropriate. And I was scared.
Scared of losing someone else I cared about.
You won't lose me.
You can't promise that. Richard couldn't. I turned my hand over so our palms pressed together.
You're right. I can't promise forever. But I can promise this. I show up every day for Sophie, for work, and if you let me, for you. Diana's eyes were wet when she leaned forward. Our foreheads touched, and we stayed there, breathing the same air, not quite kissing, but closer than we'd ever been. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Dating. Being vulnerable. It's been so long. Then we'll figure it out together. Slowly. Very slowly. But when she kissed me, there was nothing slow about it. Her lips were soft and certain and tasted like the tiramisu she'd brought from Modern Pastry. I kissed her back, careful and tentative, learning the shape of her mouth and the way she made a small sound in the back of her throat when my hand found her waist. We broke apart at the same moment.
Diana touched her lips like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. I felt the same.
That was
unexpected.
Perfect, she smiled.
For the record, I've wanted to do that since you sent that email. Maybe before, I don't know, just a while. How long is a while?
Since you defended yourself to Rebecca. Or maybe earlier, when you turned down the VP position without hesitation because it would mean disrupting Sophie's life. Most people chase promotions. You chased what mattered. We sat closer now, not kissing but touching, shoulders pressed together, her hand still in mine. The apartment was quiet except for the rain against windows and the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Normal sounds. Comfortable sounds. Diana stayed until 11:30. We talked about Richard and Rebecca and the ways loss shaped people. We talked about Sophie and what it meant to raise a child alone.
We talked about work and avoiding it. Finding balance and the fact that balance was a lie, but we could try anyway. When she finally left, she kissed me goodbye at the door, quick and chaste, then walked to her car parked at the curb. I watched until her taillights disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside and found Sophie standing at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, grinning. I knew it.
Knew what?
That you liked her.
Go to bed. Are you happy now? The question stopped me. Was I happy? The video was still circulating. Rebecca's anger still simmered. Work had gotten complicated. Everything had gotten complicated. But Diana's kiss still tingled on my lips, and for the first time in 4 years, I'd felt something besides tired. Yeah, kiddo. I think I am. Workout, 6,847 words. 3 months passed like water finding its level, settling into patterns that felt both foreign and inevitable. Diana and I had tried to take things slow.
We lasted exactly 2 weeks before slow became impossible. She showed up at Sophie's soccer games on Saturday mornings, cheering louder than any parent had a right to. She learned that Sophie liked her sandwiches cut diagonally, and that Tuesday nights were for tacos. I learned that Diana kept reading glasses in every room of her Beacon Hill brownstone because she refused to admit she needed them, and that she hummed old jazz standards while cooking breakfast. The media frenzy around the viral video faded into background noise by November. New scandals replaced ours. The Boston Globe ran one final piece about workplace romance and power dynamics that quoted neither of us, then moved on to city council corruption. Diana's stock price stabilized. My inbox stopped exploding with interview requests. Life returned to something approaching normal. Except normal now included Diana. We kept our relationship quiet at first. No public displays, no announcements.
But Callaway Industries had 3,000 employees, and gossip traveled faster than email. By Thanksgiving, everyone knew. HR filed the appropriate paperwork. The board issued a statement about transparency and ethical leadership. Diana told them all to focus on fourth quarter earnings and stay out of her personal life. Sophie adored her. That was the word she used when her teacher asked about family during parent conferences in December. I have my dad and Diana. She's not my mom, but she's family. I adore her. The teacher had looked at me for confirmation, and I'd nodded, unable to articulate the complexity of a 9-year-old accepting a new person into our tightly controlled world with such easy grace. Christmas Eve found us at Diana's house, a 3-story brownstone on Mount Vernon Street with original crown molding and a kitchen that had been renovated with more money than I'd make in 5 years. Diana's sister Anne was there with her husband and their 7-year-old daughter, Emma. Sophie and Emma had become instant friends, the kind of friendship that involved elaborate games with incomprehensible rules and giggling that lasted hours. I stood in Diana's kitchen, helping her sister prepare dinner, while Diana and her brother-in-law debated something about tax policy in the living room. Anne chopped vegetables with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. She's different with you. Lighter. I haven't seen her this happy since before Richard died. She told you about us? She didn't have to. I can see it. The way she looks at you when she thinks no one's watching, like you're the answer to a question she stopped asking. Anne paused her chopping. Marcus, can I give you some advice you didn't ask for? Sure. Don't let her use work as an excuse to avoid being vulnerable. She'll try. When things get difficult or scary, she'll bury herself in quarterly reports and board meetings. Richard used to call her out on it. She needs someone to do that now. I'm not Richard. No. But you're someone she trusts. That's rarer than you think. Dinner was chaotic and warm, the kind of meal where conversation overlapped and wine flowed, and Sophie told embarrassing stories about me that made Diana laugh until tears ran down her face. After the girls went to bed upstairs, the 4 adults sat around the fireplace drinking coffee that was mostly Irish whiskey. Anne's husband, Mark, asked about the viral video. 6 months ago, the question would have made me tense. Now it felt like ancient history. Have you talked to Rebecca since? A few times. She wants to see Sophie. We're working on supervised visits. Diana's hand found mine on the couch cushion. How's that going? Slowly. Sophie agreed to meet her at the public garden next month. Just for an hour. We'll see how it goes. That's generous of you. After everything. I shrugged. Sophie deserves the chance to know her mother, even if that relationship looks different than traditional custody. Rebecca made mistakes, but she's trying to fix them. That counts for something. Diana squeezed my hand. Later, after Anne and Mark left and Sophie was asleep in Diana's guest room, we stood on the back deck watching snow fall over Beacon Hill. The city was quiet in that muffled way snow creates, sounds absorbed by white blankets covering everything. What are you thinking about? Diana's breath clouded in the December air. How different my life looks now compared to a year ago. Last Christmas, Sophie and I ate pizza and watched movies, just the two of us. It was fine, but it was lonely. This year we had family.
We had noise and chaos and people who care about us. It's terrifying how much can change. Terrifying good or terrifying bad? Both. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not enough for you long term? Diana turned to face me. Snow caught in her hair, melting against her flushed cheeks. Marcus, you show up. Every single day. For Sophie, for work, for me. That's not nothing. That's everything. Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and trust that some good things last. We kissed in the snow and I let myself believe her. January brought the kind of Boston winter that made people question why anyone lived this far north. The city disappeared under 3 feet of snow. Schools closed. Roads became ice rinks. Sophie spent a week home from school building elaborate snow forts in our building's courtyard, while I worked remotely and Diana called in from board meetings. Rebecca texted in mid-January confirming the visit. Next Saturday, public garden, 1 hour. I'll be there at 10. I showed the text to Sophie that evening over dinner. She pushed her macaroni around her plate without eating, a sure sign of anxiety.
Do I have to go? No, but I think you should. Your mom made mistakes, but people can change. You won't know if she has unless you try.
What if she leaves again? The fear in her voice broke something in my chest. Then we deal with it together. But Sophie, you're not alone anymore. You have me. You have Aunt Jenna. You have Diana. We're not going anywhere. Diana had been standing in the doorway. She came into the kitchen and knelt beside Sophie's chair. Can I tell you something? Sophie nodded. When I was younger, my dad left my mom and me. Just walked out one day. I was so angry at him for years. But when I was 16, he reached out, wanted to have coffee. I almost said no. My mom told me the same thing your dad is telling you. People can change. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But I won't know unless I try. Did he change? Some. Not completely. We have lunch twice a year now. It's not a perfect relationship, but it's something.
And I'm glad I gave him the chance, because the alternative was wondering what if. Sophie looked at me, then at Diana.
Okay, I'll meet Mom, but Dad has to stay close.
Every second, I promised.
Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. The public garden looked like a postcard, snow covering the paths, the lagoon frozen solid, parents pulling children on sleds past the Make Way for Ducklings statues. Diana had offered to come, but I'd declined. This needed to be just Sophie, Rebecca, and me as buffer. Rebecca arrived at 10:05. She wore jeans and a North Face puffer coat, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer clothes, no power suit armor. She looked smaller than I remembered, nervous in a way I'd never associated with her. Sophie gripped my hand as Rebecca approached. Hi, baby. Hi. Awkward silence stretched. Rebecca pulled out a photo album from her bag. I brought pictures of when you were little. I thought you might want them.
We sat on a bench while Sophie flipped through pages. Baby photos. Toddler Sophie blowing out birthday candles. Family pictures from before everything fell apart. Rebecca's voice caught as she narrated.
You were the happiest baby. Slept through the night at 3 months. Your first word was Dada, and your dad was so proud he called everyone we knew. Sophie studied a photo of Rebecca holding her, both smiling at the camera. Were you happy? With me? Rebecca's composure cracked. Tears ran down her face unchecked. I was happier than I'd ever been. Then I got scared. Scared I'd lose myself. Scared I wasn't enough. So I ran. And by the time I realized what I'd given up,
It felt too late to come back. Why didn't you try anyway? Because I was ashamed. Because I thought you'd hate me. Because running was easier than facing what I'd done. Rebecca looked at me for the first time. Your dad offered me shared custody during the divorce. I said no.
I told myself it was because my career required too much flexibility. But the truth is, I was punishing myself by giving up the best thing that ever happened to me. Sophie was quiet for a long time, studying the photos. Then she looked up at Rebecca with those two old eyes that broke my heart regularly. I don't hate you. I'm sad, but I don't hate you. Miss Diana says people can change. Have you? I'm trying. My second marriage ended because I made the same mistakes. Put work first, avoided feelings, ran when things got hard. But losing Andrew made me realize I keep destroying the things I love. I'm in therapy now, really trying, not just going through motions. Rebecca's hands shook as she closed the album. I know I don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing, I'd like to be part of your life. Not as a mom who gets to make rules or have opinions about your homework. Just as someone who loves you and wants to know you. Sophie looked at me. I nodded slightly, leaving the decision to her. She turned back to Rebecca. You can visit sometimes, but if you disappear again, I won't give you another chance. Fool me once and stuff. Rebecca laughed through tears. That's fair. More than fair. She held out her arms hesitantly. Sophie considered, then leaned in for a brief hug. Not the tight embrace of a child who'd missed her mother desperately. Just acknowledgement. A start. Diana and I were sitting on her couch that evening when I recounted the meeting. Sophie had gone to bed early, exhausted from the emotional weight of the day. Diana listened without interrupting, her head resting on my shoulder. How do you feel about Rebecca being back in Sophie's life? Cautiously hopeful. Sophie needs to make peace with her mother on her own terms. If Rebecca actually does the work to be consistent, great. If not, at least Sophie will know she tried. I shifted to look at Diana. What about you? How do you feel about all this? Honestly, relieved. I was worried Sophie might resent me, that I'd be seen as the replacement mother. But if Rebecca rebuilds a relationship with her, I can just be Diana, someone who cares about her without carrying the weight of maternal expectations. You're more than just Diana to her. You know that, right? She smiled and kissed my temple. I know, but it's nice not having to compete with ghosts. February brought Valentine's Day, and with it, expectations I didn't know how to meet. Diana had given me a key to her house in January, a simple gesture that felt monumental. Now I stood in a jewelry store in downtown Crossing trying to figure out what said, I love you, but it's too soon for an engagement ring. The saleswoman showed me necklaces and bracelets. Nothing felt right. Too expensive, too cheap, too generic. I was about to give up when I saw it. A silver locket, simple and elegant, with space inside for 2 photos. Perfect. Diana opened it at dinner, and tears filled her eyes. I'd put a picture of us from Christmas on one side, Sophie on the other. She'd given me a vintage watch that had belonged to Richard, an heirloom she'd kept in a drawer for 6 years, unable to look at it. He'd want someone to use it, someone who shows up. The watch felt heavy on my wrist. Not just the physical weight, but the symbolism. I was wearing a dead man's watch, gifted by his widow who I'd fallen in love with. The complexity should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like continuity. Richard had built something good. Diana was choosing to share it. March came with the first hints of spring. Snow melted into slush. Crocuses pushed through frozen ground in the public garden. Sophie turned 10 with a party at Diana's house that included her entire soccer team, half her class, and enough cake to feed twice as many kids. Rebecca came to the party. She stayed on the periphery, talking to other parents, keeping distance. But when Sophie blew out her candles, Rebecca was there clapping. And when Sophie ran over to hug Diana first, Rebecca's face showed pain, but also acceptance. Later, helping clean up after the party, Rebecca cornered me in Diana's kitchen. She loves her. Sophie loves Diana. Yeah, she does. That should hurt more than it does, but mostly I'm grateful. Grateful Sophie has someone like that in her life. Rebecca picked up a stack of paper plates. My lawyer sent the updated custody paperwork. Monthly supervised visits, gradually moving to unsupervised if things go well. You okay with that? If Sophie is, I am. Marcus, can I ask you something? Do you love her? Diana? The question caught me mid-rinse. I set down the glass I'd been washing and turned to face my ex-wife. Yes. Good. You deserve that. I'm sorry I couldn't be that person for you. You were young. We both were. We wanted different things. That's not a crime. Rebecca smiled sadly. You're being generous. I was selfish and cruel, and I blamed you for my own inadequacies. But you're right. We did want different things. I wanted to win. You wanted to build something that mattered. Turns out you were smarter. She left before I could respond. Through the kitchen window, I watched her drive away, and for the first time since the divorce, I felt no anger. Just closure. April brought the kind of weather that made Bostonians forget they'd cursed winter existence. Trees bloomed along Commonwealth Avenue, the Charles River filled with sailboats. Diana and I took Sophie to the Arboretum on weekends, walking miles through gardens while Sophie ran ahead identifying plants she'd learned in science class. We were there on a Sunday afternoon when Diana got a call from her board. A crisis. An investor pulling out. Emergency meeting required immediately. She looked at me apologetically. I have to go. We'll come with you. Sophie can do homework in the car. Marcus, it's Sunday. Your day off. And you need to handle this. We're a team. Teams show up for each other. Something shifted in Diana's expression. Gratitude mixed with something deeper. We drove to Callaway Industries, where Diana disappeared into a conference room while Sophie and I camped in the executive lounge. 4 hours later, Diana emerged looking exhausted but triumphant. She'd saved the deal. In the car driving home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat. Diana reached across the console for my hand. Thank you for staying. Where else would I be? Most people would have complained, would have resented the interruption. I'm not most people. She laughed softly. No, you're really not. That night, after putting Sophie to bed, Diana and I sat on her back deck watching stars emerge over the city. She'd been quieter than usual, contemplative. What's on your mind? She took a breath. Move in with me. You and Sophie. This house is too big for one person. Sophie loves the neighborhood. The schools are better. And I want you here. Every morning. Not just weekends and Wednesday dinners. Every day. The offer hung between us. Massive and terrifying, and exactly what I wanted but hadn't let myself imagine. Diana, that's huge. I know. And it's fast. We've only been dating 7 months. But I've known you 4 years. I know how you take your coffee. I know you fold laundry while watching soccer matches. I know Sophie has nightmares about Rebecca leaving again, and you stay up with her until she feels safe. I know you. And I don't want to wait anymore for something that already feels right. What about Sophie? Have you talked to her? Yesterday. She said, and I quote, "Finally."
Apparently she's been waiting for me to ask. I pulled Diana close. Then yes, we'll move in. But on one condition. What? You let me pay rent. I'm not a kept man. She laughed against my shoulder.
You're insufferable. You love it. I do. God help me. I do. We moved in over Memorial Day weekend. Jenna helped, making jokes about how I'd upgraded from a 2-bedroom apartment to a brownstone worth $3 million. Sophie claimed the 3rd-floor bedroom with dormer windows overlooking Mount Vernon Street. I spent 3 days organizing my belongings into Diana's space, trying not to feel like an imposter in a home that cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. Diana found me staring at the bedroom closet where my 6 shirts hung next to her designer wardrobe. What's wrong? Just thinking about how different our lives are. You have Italian suits. I have khakis from Target. She wrapped her arms around me from behind. You also have a daughter who adores you, work ethic I've never seen matched, and the ability to make perfect lasagna. I think you're doing fine. This doesn't bother you? The income gap? Does it bother you? I turned to face her. Sometimes. I worry I'm not contributing enough, that I'm here because of your money, not because you want me. Diana's expression hardened. Marcus Hayes, listen to me very carefully. I spent 6 years alone in this house. 6 years choosing work over life because work was safer. Then you walked into a ballroom and chose silence when most men would have fought. You showed me what strength really looks like. It's not money or power or status. It's showing up every day for people who need you. That's what you bring. That's why you're here. Not because of what you earn, but because of who you are. She kissed me hard enough that I stumbled back against the closet door. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, she had that look in her eye that usually ended with us forgetting whatever we'd been doing. Besides, she added, pulling my shirt over my head, you pay rent. We had a deal. I pay $800 a month. Your mortgage is at least $15,000. So you're contributing. That's what matters. Sophie's voice echoed up the stairs. Are you guys done being gross? Emma's here and we want to use the garden. Diana and I looked at each other and laughed. Real life intruding on romantic moments. Normal. Beautiful. Ours. Summer settled into routine. I worked my 40 hours for the board while Diana ran the company. Sophie went to day camp where she made new friends and came home covered in paint and grass stains. Weekends we explored New England, Newport beaches, White Mountains hiking, Maine lobster shacks where Sophie learned to crack claws and declared herself a seafood expert. Rebecca's visits became monthly events. She'd take Sophie to museums or movies, always returning her on time, always respecting boundaries. The transformation wasn't complete, but it was real. Sophie started calling her mom again instead of Rebecca. Small progress that meant everything. In August, Diana asked me to come with her to her niece's birthday party. Anne was hosting at their house in Lexington, a sprawling colonial with a pool, where kids were already jumping and screaming when we arrived. Anne pulled me aside while Diana helped Sophie into her swimsuit. I wanted to give you something. She handed me a small box. Inside was a key. Anne, it's a copy of our house key. You're family now. That means you get a key. She hesitated. Marcus, I need to tell you something. Diana's talking about proposing. My heart stopped. What? She hasn't said it explicitly, but I know my sister. She's been looking at rings. She asks my opinion about timing. She's going to ask you to marry her. Anne studied my face. How do you feel about that? Terrified.
excited, overwhelmed, all of it simultaneously. I don't know. We've only been dating 9 months. But you've known each other 4 years, and you're living together, raising Sophie together. What's really holding you back? Fear. Fear that I wasn't enough for someone like Diana.
Fear that this fairy tale would end the way my marriage to Rebecca had. Fear that I'd wake up one day and realize I'd been playing house in someone else's league. What if I mess this up? Anne squeezed my shoulder. Then you mess it up together. That's what marriage is. Two imperfect people choosing each other every day despite the mess. You already do that. A ring just makes it official. The party continued around us, kids splashing, adults drinking beer. Diana emerged from the house with Sophie, both in swimsuits, both laughing at some private joke. Diana's eyes found mine across the yard and she smiled, that soft smile reserved for me, and I knew Anne was right. The fear didn't matter. The income gap didn't matter. What mattered was that woman right there choosing me every single day. September brought Sophie's first day of 5th grade. We stood on the brownstone steps taking pictures while Sophie complained about being embarrassed by parental affection. Diana had taken the morning off work specifically for this, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "You're going to be late for your first board meeting," I reminded her. "They can wait 5 minutes. This is more important." After Sophie left, Diana and I had coffee on the back deck. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her mug in a way that wasn't characteristic. "Marcus, can we talk about something?" My stomach dropped. Those words never preceded good news. "Sure. I've been thinking about us, about what we're building, and I realized something." She set down her mug and took my hand. "I don't want to date you anymore." The world tilted. "What?" "Let me finish." Diana pulled a small box from her pocket. My brain short-circuited. "I don't want to date you because dating implies temporary, testing things out, keeping options open. I want permanent. I want legal. I want you to be my husband and Sophie's stepfather, and the person I choose every single day for the rest of my life." She opened the box. A simple platinum band, no diamonds, just clean lines and solid metal. Exactly what I would have chosen. "Marcus Hayes, will you marry me?" The question hung in the morning air. Birds sang in the garden. Traffic hummed on Charles Street. The city continued around us, while I stared at the woman I loved holding a ring and asking me to spend forever with her. "Yes." The word came out choked. "Yes, I'll marry you." Diana's smile could have lit the entire city. She slid the ring onto my finger and kissed me like we had all the time in the world, and also like time was running out. When we finally broke apart, both crying and laughing, she pressed her forehead to mine. "I love you. I should have said it sooner, but I was scared and stupid and convinced I didn't deserve good things after Richard. But you taught me that showing up is enough, that trying matters more than perfection. You made me remember how to live instead of just exist. I love you too, even when you're terrifying and brilliant and way out of my league. We're exactly in the same league, the league of people who choose each other." We told Sophie that evening at dinner. Her reaction was to roll her eyes and say, "Obviously," like we'd announced the sky was blue. Then she hugged us both and asked if she could be in the wedding party and wear a fancy dress. The wedding was set for June, small and intimate at the Arnold Arboretum where we'd spent so many Sunday afternoons. Sophie would walk Diana down the aisle. Anne would officiate. Jenna would stand beside me.
We'd invite close friends and family, and no one else. No spectacle, no viral moments. Just us choosing each other in front of people who mattered. October brought another call from Rebecca. She'd been offered a position at a smaller firm in Boston.
Partner track, reasonable hours, the opportunity to rebuild her life in the city where her daughter lived. I wanted to ask your permission before accepting. I don't want to disrupt Sophie's routine or make things weird with you and Diana. Rebecca, you don't need my permission to move here. If you want to be closer to Sophie, that's your choice. We'll make it work. A pause. You're being generous again. I'm being practical. Sophie deserves to know her mother. If you're serious about being present, proximity helps. I am serious. Therapy helped me understand that I was chasing external validation to fill internal voids. Work titles, marriage, status. But none of it mattered because I'd abandoned the one thing that should have mattered most. I can't get those years back, but I can show up for the years ahead. She moved to Boston in November, renting a condo in Back Bay. Sophie started having dinners at her place, unsupervised now, coming home with stories about Rebecca's terrible cooking and her new cat named Mozzarella. Diana and I were washing dishes one evening after Sophie regaled us with a tale about Rebecca burning pasta to the point that smoke alarms went off. Diana was laughing, soap suds on her forearms, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. This is nice. Weird, but nice. What is? Sophie having both her parents in her life. You and me building something together. All the complicated pieces fitting into place. She rinsed a plate and set it in the rack. A year ago, I was alone in this house, wondering if I'd spend the rest of my life married to my company. Now I have you. I have Sophie. I have Sunday dinners and soccer games and arguments about whose turn it is to take out the trash. I have life again. I pulled her close, not caring that we were both wet from dishwater. You gave me life too. Before you, I was surviving, getting through days, making sure Sophie had what she needed, but forgetting to make sure I had anything. You reminded me I'm allowed to want things, allowed to be happy. Are you happy? Terrifyingly so. She kissed me, soft and sure. Good. Me too. Christmas arrived with the kind of perfection that felt unreal. Snow fell on Christmas Eve while we trimmed the tree. Sophie and Emma made cookies that were more frosting than dough. Anne and Mark came for dinner. Jenna brought her family. Even Rebecca stopped by briefly with gifts for Sophie, staying just long enough to be polite before leaving us to our celebration. After everyone left and Sophie was asleep, Diana and I sat by the fireplace with wine and silence. I was wearing the watch she'd given me last year. She was wearing the locket with our pictures, small symbols of us choosing each other every day. I've been thinking about vows, Diana said quietly. What I want to say when we get married. Yeah? I want to promise to show up, even when it's hard, even when work is demanding or I'm scared, or the easy thing would be to hide in my office. I want to promise that you and Sophie matter more than quarterly earnings or board approval. I want to promise to keep choosing you. I linked my fingers through hers. I want to promise the same, to show up, to choose you, to remember that perfection isn't the goal, presence is. We're going to mess up sometimes, probably, but we'll mess up together. She rested her head on my shoulder and we watched the fire burn down to embers. Outside, Boston slept under white blankets. Inside, we'd built something warm and lasting. Something that had started with a viral video and a billionaire defending a single dad had transformed into family. The viral video still existed, 10 million views and climbing. People still commented, still debated,
still created narratives about romance and redemption and fairy tales.
But the video was just a moment, a catalyst. What came after was us. Real, messy, complicated, beautiful. Sophie would grow up with two parents who loved her and one stepmother who chose to be present. Rebecca would continue therapy and rebuilding, slowly earning back trust she'd lost. Diana would run her company while remembering that people mattered more than profit. I would keep showing up, every single day, for the people who taught me that showing up was enough. The clock struck midnight. Christmas became yesterday. The future spread before us, uncertain and promising. And ours. Diana shifted against my shoulder. What are you thinking about? How far we've come. From that ballroom to here. From strangers to this. We were never strangers. I knew exactly who you were 4 years ago. I was just too scared to admit it mattered. I kissed the top of her head. And now I'm not scared anymore. I'm home. The fire died. The house settled into sleep sounds. We sat together in the dark, two people who'd found each other in the mess, who'd chosen each other despite complications, who'd built something lasting from a moment that had started as defense and evolved into love. This was what showing up looked like. Not grand gestures or viral moments, just two people on a couch on Christmas night, choosing each other again, promising to keep choosing each other tomorrow and all the days after that. Simple, profound, everything.